All right, folks, welcome back to Moo the Motherland. Today, we're diving into something that's honestly one of my favorite angles on the whole Atlantis mystery. The idea that Atlantis wasn't just advanced in like flying machines or whatever, but that their entire civilization was built around this mind-boggling crystalline grid. It's like the technology was holistic, harmonic, rooted in consciousness itself, not just pushing buttons or flipping switches, but working with energy in a way that sort of, well, amplifies intent and connects directly to stewardship values. Marlene, every time we talk about Atlantis, I get tripped up by this idea that energy isn't neutral there. It's always about balance.
Absolutely, and that's such a key part of the myth, or maybe, the message. The Atlanteans didn't treat power as something to be maximized for its own sake. Everything in their society, especially the energy grid, was about stewardship. How do you use power responsibly? Their temples, for example, weren't just religious sites at all. They were interfaces. Think like these conscious spaces where your state of mind actually shaped the experience. Healing, learning, governing, each temple had its own resonance and was plugged into the grid, not as a consumer, but as a sort of energetic node.
That's so wild. And this really hit me a while ago when I visited one of those modern crystal healing centers. It's nowhere near as sophisticated, obviously, but you can feel how people are trying to recapture something experiential. I remember sitting in this room surrounded by these big quartz points, the facilitator talking about resonance and coherence. It was so much about what you sense, not just intellectual stuff. In the Atlantean story, knowledge itself is experiential too. Not memorized facts, but a kind of tuning in. It's pretty different from the way we chase innovation now, where, I might be wrong, but it often feels more detached, like we forget to ask what our technology is doing to us at a deeper level.
Right, and it's such a great connection to what we've discussed in previous episodes, like the stone basins at Garab, or those sound healing temples at Saqqara. There's this repeating theme that knowledge used to be felt, not just learned. And in Atlantis, the master crystals and the grid weren't just power sources. They were these intricate, interdependent systems that made sure no single person could just, take over. Everything was about redundancy and cooperation. Ethical restraint, not just for show, but something actually woven into how technology ran. Imagine living in a world where your highest tech actually checks you, asks you to slow down and reflect. I mean, what would that even look like now?
Yeah, and that brings us right to the second moon, the thing that really changed everything. I love how in Atlantean Chronicles, the moon is not a weapon. It's this macro-crystalline satellite, about 5 miles across, designed as an amplifier for the planetary grid. Originally, everything about it was built to avoid centralization. Like, the control was distributed, decisions required consensus, layers of ethical review, really ahead of their time. But the moment they started taking those safeguards for granted...
It's honestly so relatable. At first, the second moon worked incredibly well. Climate moderation, stabilization, all that. But because it was so successful, people just started leaning on it more and more. It's like, once you know the system compensates for your mistakes, you stop worrying so much about making them. And then you get the rise of this technocratic group, the Sons of Belial, who push for even more centralization. Not through some grand coup, but, just by tweaking what's efficient. Suddenly, ethical gating is seen as a nuisance, streamlined out, and before you know it, you've automated away the whole reflection process.
Totally, and it reminds me of how we trust algorithms today. We build these incredibly smart systems and then just let them run, assuming they'll always do the right thing. But the Atlanteans, well, they built the moon to need rest cycles, reflection, kind of like human consciousness. And once they removed those limits and let it just output nonstop, that was when things started fracturing, literally and figuratively.
This is the part of the myth that really feels like a warning for us, I think. I was reading a study the other day about modern automated infrastructure, self-driving cars, AI medical systems, and how when you lose the habit of, ethical checks, you end up just rubber stamping whatever's fastest or easiest. In Atlantis, that led to grid overload, resonance drift accumulating, the whole system needing constant correction, and nobody stopping to ask if they were running into a wall. We kind of see that now, don't we? It's almost too easy to trust the thing that works really well until it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. The shift from decentralized stewardship to centralized quick fixes. Nobody planned a disaster. It was just a bunch of small choices that felt normal at the time. And then, the day came when the moon's containment failed, and everything just broke down. Literal grid failure, earthquakes, the sea swallowing Atlantis piece by piece. There's no going back after that kind of cascade.
And that's exactly where Atlantis stops being just this high-tech society and becomes a legend that survives worldwide. The aftermath is like something out of every flood myth. The survivors dispersing, cities going under, massive tidal waves changing the world. But what I love about this story is the idea that they deliberately chose not to just, hand down the blueprints. They packed their knowledge into myths, symbols, sacred geometry, patterns instead of instructions. It's like they knew that if humanity wasn't ready, the tech itself was dangerous.
Exactly. It's not a lost instruction manual. It's a mirror. I mean, take this idea that flood stories, or the geometry in old temples, or even ritual knowledge are all echoes of Atlantis. They're warnings, but also reminders that wisdom can't just be stored on a shelf until you need it again. You have to practice it, or it fades, which, by the way, is a theme we keep coming back to on this show. I think of Atlantis as the ultimate myth about the normalization of risk. How easy it is to let little shortcuts become the new normal, and then wake up in a world you didn't mean to create.
Yes! And that's why Atlantis fits so well into Mu the Motherland, myth as a carrier of ancestral memory. It's not asking us to rebuild some super civilization or resurrect the lost technology. It's about understanding why we almost always forget to pair power with reflection. The Greeks, the Sumerians, even some native stories, so many of them talk about the dangers of forgetting humility. We have to remember, because once you automate wisdom, you pretty much lose it.
Couldn't have said it better. All right, I guess that's as good a place as any to wrap up for today. If you're as fascinated or slightly concerned as we are about what these ancient myths are really saying about us, tune back in. We'll definitely be exploring more of these patterns and echoes from the past next time. Marlene, thanks for wading through the crystal grids and doomsday warnings with me again.
Always, Robert. And thanks to everyone for joining us. Remember, the myth isn't there to scare you straight, but to invite you to reflect. See you next episode. Take care, Robert.
Take care, Marlene.